All right, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Live, my thought leadership room here. So I want to introduce everybody in the room. I've got Keith Keller, who is a social audio genius and a thought leader. Actually, guys, I'm just going to toss it to you guys. Everybody go around the room, introduce yourselves. I am going to start. I am Chris Pinadella. I'm a hospital and healthcare account rep. I'm also a thought leader in artificial intelligence as well as healthcare. So I'm going to move it on over to Keith.
I'm a social audio guy. Everyone in the world's doing video. I'm not. I'm just going to buck the trend. I'm not putting my video on. I never do, never will. I hate shaving, and I just love doing social audio shows. The fact that I don't wear a suit doesn't make me any less intelligent. The fact that I haven't had a shave today doesn't actually change my wisdom. I just can't be bothered. I've got to be honest. I just hate shaving. So I do social audio shows, in a black t-shirt and jeans. But you don't need to know that because all you can see is my face. And that's why I really want to talk about social audio and thought leadership. Sometimes you've got to buck the trend. Sometimes you've got to lead from the front. I'm making this up now, but you put me on the spot, and I don't normally talk about myself. But that's me. I'm an Aussie from Melbourne, Australia, and I do 3 shows a week on this. But I'm helping Chris out today. How's that?
That was perfect. And with that, I'm going to toss it on over. Thanks, Keith, for introducing yourself to Mike LeBlanc. Mike, tell us
Sure,
about
I'm Mike.
yourself.
I'm Mike LeBlanc. I'm very interested in AI, privacy, and security. I think many of the vendors are a bit over their skis in that regard. Um, if I don't know if you've seen, but Deep Seek has become Deep Leak. So I'm here to listen to you folks and understand better how to get my message out.
Awesome. And Kenny is the Kenny. I'll allow you to introduce himself. Kenny is a researcher at MD Anderson. Kenny, are you
Just
there?
here for
Yeah, I can hear you, Kenny. Thank you. Yes, we can hear you. All right.
yeah,
So
I
with
said that
that,
I'm
I'm going
just
to
here.
toss it. All right. Well, thank you, Kenny. I appreciate the support. All right. So Keith and I put something together. Keith actually sent it over to me. So I want to read it kind of to set the tone for what this room is going to be about. So, thought leadership is the process of sharing ideas and perspectives that shape the conversation in a particular field or industry. Thought leaders are individuals who are recognized as experts or influencers in their field and who use their knowledge, expertise, and their platform to shape public opinion, drive innovation, and inspire others. To be a thought leader, you must develop a deep understanding of your field. So, thought leaders must be well versed in the latest trends, research, and the best practices of their industry. You must share your insights. So, thought leaders must be willing to share their insights and ideas through speaking engagements like the one we're doing right now, social media like we're on right now, and other channels. We need to be able to foster dialogue. Thought leaders must be willing to engage in dialogue with others in their field and consider diverse perspectives and opinions. Thought leaders must also lead by example. So, thought leaders must embody the values and the behaviors they advocate for and use their platform to drive positive change. So, the whole point of the event, what I'm doing here tonight, is I want to give everybody a chance to elevate themselves. Everybody here in the audience, everybody up on stage, talk about yourself, what you do, how you see thought leadership evolving in the 21st century. Mike started by asking a great question. And I'm actually going to toss it to Keith with what I think thought leadership is actually evolving in the 21st century. I think it's kind of a collective conversation, a collective dialogue that we're all having together. And we're kind of all learning in the moment through these new social medias, these new restream type based apps that we're doing in real time as we're restreaming this out to different socials. We're shaping narratives in real time because this is being broadcast simultaneously to multiple different social medias right now. So I think we're kind of navigating, we're pioneering right here in what we're doing right now. So I'll toss it to Keith and ask what he thinks about that.
Yeah, I think the idea of thought leadership is a term that a lot of people might hear but not know much about. And so based on that really lovely definition that you read out, I created a poll today, and I'd be very interested to start the conversation here with what people think thought leadership is for them. I agree with you that it is a global conversation, and we will have that discussion because I'm in Melbourne, Australia. It's already tomorrow. Yell out if you want the Tetslotto numbers. We already know what's going to happen. So we're like about 12 hours in the future. So, the global story is very powerful. But I'm really interested to know what people think thought leadership is. Is it deep understanding? Is it sharing your insights? Is it fostering dialogue? Or is it leading by example? Or is it a combination of all of those things and a willingness to embrace them? And so I've done a poll about that. Yell out if you want a copy of that, or I'll send it to your DMs. Or I'm on LinkedIn doing that now. But it's a very fascinating discussion, isn't it? What is thought leadership? What do you think, Chris? What is it? What do you think? What do you think it is for you?
For me, thought leadership, for the most part, is like you said, it's a combination of all of the above. Um, I would say my strength lies in leading by example. For me personally, I had a voice when I was younger, and I think like a lot of people, I lost it during the pandemic, and I've regained it, and I think coming out. Changing the way I've just been approaching situations, and just learning all this new technology, and the how easy it's become to have a real impact in thought leadership in this world when you know how to plug and play in the right places, you understand algorithms, and you actually, I think the other part that a lot of people discount about thought leadership, it takes a lot of work, right? You can't just be a thought leader by having ideas. You actually have to have put work in, and have some expertise as well. So a lot of what I see out there, a lot of people who call themselves thought leaders who haven't really done a lot of the study, the work, and the necessary. um, they haven't put in the work, but they still want to speak like they know, like they're absolute authorities. So it's interesting. I would say it's a combination of all of it. But for me, leading by example would be the one that resonates the most with
Yeah,
me.
I mean, everyone wants to lose weight, but not everyone wants to exercise, right? I mean, everyone wants to be famous, but some of us are pretty lazy. So, thought leadership is not easy. I mean, it's if you decide that that's a thing you want, it takes hours. In fact, there's a phrase we use. I think it's 10,000 hours. There's a strict definition that if you've done what you do for 10,000 hours, you could possibly consider yourself a thought leader. You can't just pick up a book and read a book and say, you know what, I read a book. I'm a leader on this. I've never done it, but I read this book and it made sense, and I can repeat it back to you. That's not thought leadership. That's just sort of recitation, isn't it? And I know exactly what you're talking about because there's a lot of them, isn't there?
Keith, I wonder how much is listening first. And also, I found in my CISO role that education was probably a very large part of my leadership. And that is, to your point, once you've gained the expertise, you need to be able to meet people at the audience at whatever level they're at, in order to get your point across and to get your program activated.
That is a fantastic point. That's a fantastic point, Mike.
I think
Not
authenticity,
everyone, and I'm,
I think
and I'm guilty
authenticity
of
is
this
also.
myself. I
I
think
think
what you said there,
yeah.
there's a bit of a time lag here. That's one of the problems with internet. What you're saying there makes a lot of sense. Some people know what they know, but they don't necessarily know how to talk about it. They know what they know, and they think it's obvious to others. I'm guilty of this. Like I'm the number one exponent of mansplaining in the world, probably. I think that if you looked at mansplaining in the dictionary, there'd be a picture of me and my LinkedIn profile. Just go to Keith if you want a session of mansplaining, because I get it. I love what I'm doing, but I have a bit of trouble explaining it. So what's the trick there, Mike? How do you do it? How do you explain things in a simple way for people at their level? That is a skill.
Well, again, it's listening to understand where they're at. I can go into the weeds, or I can keep it at a 60,000 foot view. So it's really understanding what their needs are. If it's a business person, I need to sort of think like a business person and meet them where they're at. If it's mid-level management, I need to meet them at their level. And like one of the things I think you also have to have writing skills, or at least being able to think through. I will say, if you can teach something, then you really get to know it. So I think being able to present, get a presentation together and present it well is going to be, take you a long ways towards thought leadership.
Yeah, would you agree with that, Chris? Jump in.
Yeah, I agree with them 100%. I just, first of all, I want to welcome Marcia and Scott to the stage who haven't gotten a chance to speak yet. But just to tag on to what Mike said, it's so important, especially in business, on the business side of things. Like thought leadership applies to so many categories, but like in business, it's incredibly important to, as Mike was saying, know your audience and who you're talking to, and um, your authority and their authority and vice versa, and just understand, that certain departments might not understand certain vernaculars and certain language, and just how to navigate that and how to cross-functionally communicate in a way that's effective, in a way that aligns goals, so that everybody understands that you're all driving towards the same thing. But you have to make sure that the language makes sense to everybody. So I think that's kind of what Mike was alluding to, if I'm not mistaken. But I was also trying to make sure I was letting Marcia and Scott in the room. So correct me if I was wrong, Mike.
No, I think you captured exactly what I was saying.
Yeah. And with that, I would like to give Scott and Marcia the chance to introduce themselves. So, ladies first, Marcia, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Marcia Thomas. I am a Christian leadership consultant, life and career coach, and then a thought leader by virtue of my expertise and observations and the way I want to or seek to comment about leadership personally and leadership generally, especially modern leadership and the silent issues that affect leaders at every level, and most importantly, female leaders. I'm happy to be with you this afternoon. I am having the flu, so I might sound off sometimes or a little muffled.
We'll also welcome Zakia, but Scott, I gave you the next spot. So, Scott, introduce yourself, and then Zakia next. You're on mute, Scott. We can't hear you.
My apologies. Thank you so much to the team that showed up to speak about thought leadership. I think that's it's very awesome, and it's already been well done to explain that authenticity is important. Someone said that here in the comments. Being able to meet people exactly where they're at, it may be the most paramount, important thing to do. If you want to help someone build a bridge, you have to know how to find them first. So for me, I'm a leadership consultant and coach. I do not necessarily think that I am a thought leader. We do executive and leadership assessments with individuals and then with companies as well to, like I said, meet people where they're at, and help them to get to where they're going. The panel that's already spoke, Mike, Keith, Chris, thank you so much for a great kickoff. for me, I don't consider myself a thought leader as much because in my work, I don't think that it's about me as much as it's about my clients and what's special and important to them. We do use certified psychometric assessments to identify who they are, where they're going, why they behave the way they do, what their style looks like, and then maybe what their genius is, their top skills, talents, and the order that they think. So I have not done it 10,000 times exactly, so I don't consider myself a thought leader, but I am working on it. I've been doing this for 10 years. So thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the stage with you guys, and it's a great topic. So I'm taking notes, and I'm very glad to be here. Thank you.
Can I jump in on that and ask a question, Scott, and Chris? Do you think thought leaders can work within a company, or does the term thought leader really apply to an entrepreneur running their own game? I've always assumed a thought leader was someone that ran their own business, that had a feeling of sort of sharing their knowledge. It never occurred to me that a thought leader would work with clients. And I mean, obviously, that's how they make their income. But I was really interested in your thoughts that you don't consider yourself a thought leader because you are more concerned about the wisdom of your clients. That's a uh, fantastic insight, and possibly a little bit of humility that I really honor in you. You're probably much wiser than you give yourself credit for. What do you think, Scott? Am I putting you on the spot there?
Oh yeah, thank you so much. And I did just unmute myself. That is a great question. What I would say thought leadership is to me, it's the ability to communicate a vision of shared values, right? Values or motivations to do things, but you have to be able to persuade people to come with you. And if you are a thought leader, if you're truly a thought leader, you're going to stand up and take charge. And those individuals aren't usually very great at doing what they're told and falling in line. I mean, they can be a part of a team, but they're like, even if you just look at psychometrics and even if you just look at DISC, I'm a pretty high D. And it says that, I have a tendency to stand up and take charge versus get in the back seat and go along for the ride. So I do think that most thought leaders find their own way in the world and they go do what they want to do for themselves with the people that want to go with them. And I don't want to say that they're like wild maverick horses that can't be saddled, but I would just say that great leaders usually, even if they play well with others, even if self-appointed, they're more in the leadership role than they are great at being a follower. So thank you so much, Keith. Great comments. I look forward to getting to know you better. Thank you so much.
Oh, no worries. I'm already sending you some DMs with some of the. My job is I'm almost like a chronicler. Like I take all these cool screenshots just to remind you of the show we had. So I've already taken a shot of you there. I've sent that to you. So that's a good place to start. You keep going, Chris. This is a good conversation.
Yeah, I think it's time to introduce another thought leader, Zakia. Welcome to the stage.
Hi, everybody. Is this cameras on or off? I feel like I don't know. Should I turn it on or leave it off or just keep on talking?
Well, just keep on talking. I mean, we
Okay.
were going to keep it just kind of the audio format because that's what we're used to, but Scott came in with his video, so feel free. If you want it on, feel free to go on. If not, keep it off.
Nah, I'll keep it off. Okay, so hello, everyone. I'll introduce myself. I'm Zakia. I am the owner of Business Tech Lab. I help small businesses to leverage technology to go from being a traditional brick and mortar to actually building an online presence. And the reason I'm so effective at it is I was my first client and figured out how to sell physical products, digital products, services, and consulting. And so I'm always my first client for anything that I introduce to my clients. And so they typically get really good results. And I do want to answer Keith's question on, do you have to be an entrepreneur or can you be in a corporate space? Was that the question, Keith?
Yeah,
And still be
it's a good
considered a
thought.
thought leader?
Yeah. What do you think?
The first time I heard the term thought leader was 2015, and that was when I was live streaming walking down the street of Philadelphia. And someone just put in there, Zakia, you're a thought leader. And I had never heard it before. And of course, since we're on here and I'm not on camera, I can give you the Chat GPT definition of what a thought leader is. And then
Good. Yeah.
and then my reasoning for why I think you do need to be an entrepreneur or someone with pull within an organization in order to be a thought leader. So the way they're describing it is a thought leader is an individual or organization recognized as an authority in a specific field or industry. So that could be a lot of people, but they are known for their expertise. Here's the crux: innovation and ability to provide insightful perspectives, solutions, and guidance. Now, the reason I said the innovation is a crux is typically when you are working in a corporate space, there is a lot of red tape and a lot of places that you have to go. And typically, when we're talking about innovation,
Mm.
there is no research to support what you're innovating on. And when you're in a corporate space, they typically want to see the data behind what it is that you want to do before they
Good
will implement
idea.
it.
It's like, yeah, give me the numbers. You give me the numbers, and there you go. You get funding. But if we've all been in that position, haven't we? We go to
Yeah,
the boss with a good idea, and he says, "Look, he or she, look, I think there's some value here, but if you can give me some stats, if you can find a white paper on this, then man, you have the budget. If you can't,
right.
then get back in your box and just keep doing what you're doing and do what you're told." I know I'm exaggerating, make a point, but like it's very, very difficult to move forward if you're in a corporate structure, isn't it?
It is.
Or
Unless,
is it?
but
Am I
here's the
putting words in
thing,
your mouth?
depending on who you are in the space, because there are some people that have that pull, but if you're the general person who has really good ideas, but for whatever reason, your boss does not see them, it's shot down, whatever that thing may be. But that's when having a corporate sponsor, those people that can pull levers and push your ideas forward if you are not that person within a corporate space. But I think it's a lot easier for entrepreneurs to do it because we can shift the tide at a moment's notice and nobody's going to tell us that we can't, except our revenue.
That's right. No one's telling me what to do. That's for sure. No one's telling me what to do. I work for myself, and that's the thing.
I
You do
think I
that too,
want
don't you?
to. I think I
Jump
would
in.
want to. Go ahead.
There you go.
I think I would want to interject something here. I have been on both sides for the last 20 years. I've led organizations and I have been a team player in the corporate organization. In fact, I have moved all the levels up until I became a leader of an organization. And as I wrote in my book, A Leader Like You, I have discovered that any corporation whatsoever, any institution, even if it is your home, there is a heart and a head. And we are speaking metaphorically because that is the role that they play. And I believe that the informal structure has more power than the formal structure. And that is a given that many times persons miss. And so, Chris, I believe that the thought leadership permeates all areas and all levels of an organization. And this is how I think it plays out in an organization, because it's not so much about the expertise as many people think, but it is the ability of this person to use their voice to shape conversations, to drive change, and to create a meaningful impact. And that might be that it now pulls on the innovation and the creativity of the persons in the organization. And that is why you have in organizations what I call the silent critic. This is the thought leader that is able to present disgruntlement, disillusionment, disconnect at the informal structure level and get people to change, support, or actually what do you call it now, work against the persons who they feel are not meeting their needs, or giving them an overload, causing a burnout, causing tension or distress. And so thought leadership is not so much dependent on your expertise. Of course, persons who are experts are thought leaders, and they make changes and they drive innovation and creativity. But what we miss is that the informal structure have produced more thought leaders by virtue of their experience and how they receive you, and how they find themselves naturally leaning to persons who they feel can defend them, or has the voice or the courage to stand up on their behalf and to make the necessary changes on their behalf.
Let's pick up on the word courage. How important is it for thought leaders to be courageous enough to go against the tide and say, you know what, this is right? I know it's not popular, but this is the right thing to do. And I'm with you. I'm going to stand behind you. How important is courage in thought leadership? Is it imperative? Can you get by without it? Or is it a quintessential ingredient?
Keith, I have a couple thoughts. I think uh, along with courage is integrity. Um, and they're close, but I think you absolutely have to be able to stand firm in whatever your chosen path or thought in this case is. Um, Otherwise, I don't know how successful you would be at leading. Now, I do think that you don't necessarily have to be an entrepreneur, but I think you have to have sort of an entrepreneurial spirit. In other words, you have to be out in front, whatever that means. From a thought perspective, whether it's expertise, whether I feel like a lot of times I'm connecting dots. So I'm not necessarily, I'm not a follower in that respect. I'm like with AI, I'm trying to sort out, okay, what does it buy us? What are what are the pros? What are the cons? Seems like we're very on top of the hype cycle right now. How do we separate reality from the hype? And then I think the other thing is being willing to mentor and take maybe even a consultative role. To me, I think you can't just be pounding the drum, with your truth. I think it's important, but I think somehow you have to develop this concept of being consulting. And I have to say, I felt the most thought leader when I was in a consultative role, but I had consultative roles inside of companies as well.
Awesome. Great answer. Great answer.
I agree with Mike, and I think consensus. As you look at consensus through the eyes of courage, I believe in the integrity, knowing yourself and what you stand for, and actually why you're doing what you're doing, gives you that type of courage, because you lead by example, one, and you are very purposeful, intentional, and adaptable. And so you actively listen to others, and you make sure that you include them in your decision making, and you make them see step by step what they are contributing and how it takes or adds to the policies or the structure that you're trying, or the project that you're trying to complete. And that becomes very important if you talk about courage, because it means that you have to pull people along. And there are times when thought leaders, because they are courageous and it's not about an ego for them, but a meaningful change and getting persons consensus, and also getting persons to buy into the vision, that they sometimes stand alongside people or even stay behind and test people to see what they can produce. And that in itself is also courageous, especially if you see yourself as the final accountable officer, or feel that all the repercussions will come on you. Personal accountability is extremely important, and the well-being of your team, and having persons work at their own pace and actually based on their competence and what they can give, and having them collaborate takes a lot of courage for you to drive the outcome, the intended outcome.
Keith, can I add something and let me know if I'm off base? Because I really like that term courage. And I'm hearing the term integrity and conviction around what it is that people want to share. But I'm going to dig back into that innovation piece because I have two very clear examples of being a thought leader and requiring that courage to stand in that conviction. One of them was live streaming back in 2015. It initially started with people asking, "What are you doing?" Then they were saying, "Why are you doing it?" And those same people now turn around and pay me to show them how to do it.
Exactly.
The
Now
other
that is thought leadership 101.
Yep. And the other piece of that is one thing that I've seen time and time again with several thought leaders is they have to have the courage to be pioneers because pioneers are often persecuted, right? Like, and let's take AI as an example. 2 years ago, you had people on their high horse on, oh my gosh, AI could never do what I do. And now those same people are trying to catch up to those that had started doing it over 2 years ago, or it's been around much longer. But there was that initial cry and fear of no, we can't do it because it wasn't widely accepted. I think in order for someone to be a thought leader, they need to lead, not wait for the crowd to agree that it's okay and it's the cool thing and it's the next new thing. Even if everybody tells you it's wrong, if you have that conviction and the courage for what it is that you're doing, you are a thought leader, regardless of if one person agrees or a million people agree. And I'll
Because
step
the
off
word
my
leader
soapbox.
is in there, isn't it? The
Yep.
word leader is in the phrase thought leader. You can't lead from the back, you know. And I'll give you a really good example. I'll double whammy this. In 2008, I was doing a podcast on a site called Blog Talk Radio, and I said, "Oh, I've got a podcast." Now, most people in 2008 were saying, "Mate, what are you doing that for? Why have you got a podcast on the computer? Why don't you just go into the city? Just go into the city and speak in a room with real people. Come on, you're hiding out now." 2008. Now everyone's going, "Mate, I want to start a podcast. You know how to do it?" Well, it's 2025. You're a bit late, maybe, you know. But yeah, I can help you. I've been doing it for a while. I can help you. But come on, I did this 20 years ago. Yeah, but I wasn't with you then. So thought leaders have to have the courage to almost buck the trend and say, you know what, I think there's value here. They have to have an insight. You know, I think there's value here. I'm going to try this. I reckon this is going to work. And I don't know where that insight comes from. Maybe it's just blind ignorance. I don't know. But sometimes you've got to lead. When you were doing live streaming in 2015, you must have been pretty much going it alone because it was pretty new then, wasn't it?
It was. And in my industry in particular, I was bucking the trend. You didn't show behind the scenes of how you made the product. It was always that finished, final, amazing product that you shared on Instagram. Now, when you look, everybody is showing behind the scenes. But back then, we did not do that. It was the wizard behind the curtain. And it only came out when you were doing those Instagram posts where it would be that perfect finished picture behind the best background ever. Now people want to mess up because they know that endears their community to them, and they're going to post that more so than the finished product.
You know, we did a show this week, and I know you resonated with this phrase. I think you congratulated me on it, so I'm gonna be a bit courageous and say it again. But you know, I love this phrase that you've got to have the courage to suck. You know, not everyone can do this. Like, not everyone can do. You know what? I'm going to tell you that. You know, sometimes when I'm making my soap, it doesn't work out. I get the mix wrong. It comes out a funny color. Now, imagine a hairdresser saying, "You know what? 6 out of 10 times I get the color wrong." I mean, it's not very cool, is it? But those 4 times that I get those bloody great haircuts, look at these pictures of these gorgeous women with these fantastic hair things. Right? But what about the 6 other things where I've sort of mucked up a bit and had to redo it? So sometimes you've got to have the courage to suck while you're learning, and not everyone can do it. What do you think about that as a definition of courage? Just we can't know everything straight away. Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to throw myself up on stage because I'm demonstrating some courage learning this live on the fly right now. I mean, this is a lot of fun to learn this tech here on the fly. But no, I agree with you, Keith. And to bring it back to the thought leadership thing, like one of the other things I'm really interested, one of the kind of the ways I want to segue is how is thought leadership, evolving right now in real time? Like the world is changing in so many different ways. It is changing, Mike had brought up AI. Like AI is revolutionizing the world. It's not just, and then it's just not AI, but we're also going into quantum. And then we've got unchecked things going on all around the world with different geopolitical power grabs and different trade things going on. So like what does thought leadership look like right now? Because my honest opinion is are you guys seeing enough thought leadership being displayed around the world right now? And what do you do if you don't?
Geez, that's a good question. Where does the I'm really interested in this, Chris. Where does the desire to stand up and make a difference come from? And why do so many people do it? And why do so many people let it be done? I'm sort of in the middle. I'm pretty lazy, so I'm happy to get things done. I'm very happy to take the spoils, but I'm really interested in where this thought leadership comes from. What is it in humanity and in the human spirit that says, you know what, that's not right. I'm going to fix that. Where does that come from, Chris? Because that's sort of where you're alluding to. I don't have that. Like I'm just being honest. I don't have that gene. I don't have that bit in my body. I don't have that part. I don't. It's not about courage. It's just not. I just don't wake up thinking, you know what, I'm going to change the world. I don't have that part. That's not my character. And I'm wondering, where does it come from? Are you born with it? Are you hanging out with people that have it? Is it instilled in your private school education? Where does it come from, Chris?
I have two answers for that.
Yeah, I'll let Mike go first and then I'll follow up.
Well, it came to me last year why I was so invested in cybersecurity. And deep down, to your point, Keith, I want to protect people, their privacy, their data, them being scammed. I actually do presentations on scams for seniors. So somewhere deep inside, I have this need to protect. And then I think the other thing is, as far as doing something, there's something again deep inside, very attached to my personal integrity, that says I need to do something about this. I see a problem. Like I have an article on security for crypto. I've actually reached out to the FBI and the Secret Service. I think it's going to take more regulation, unfortunately. Although I think there's profit to be made for vendors that can think about how to do that for crypto as well. But those are my two ideas relative to why I do it.
Yeah,
I just love this question because it always challenges me because I don't have that gene, and I'm not embarrassed about that. I'm not self-deprecating myself to say that I should be better. I just don't have that part. That part of me is not active in my personality. It's absent. And that means that I have a different view of the world. But I'm fascinating because where does it come from?
And that in itself, Keith, in my opinion, makes you stand out in that framework as a a thought leader in a different way, because thought leadership doesn't mean that you stand up and must be seen and heard at all times. Thought leadership means that you actually make a change. What is a change that you are actually making? So you might not be in your mind standing at the forefront, but you might just find that you're in that sphere of being a thought leader because of the impact that you're having and what it is doing for other persons to change their lives and their income outcomes. Because that is, thought leadership has a meaning and has actually a destination in mind. True thought leaders who find themselves, whether because they go in a group of persons who are powerful in how they understand their why and how they want to deliver their why and how they feel they are commissioned by life, by destiny, by purpose, by framework in their family to deliver themselves and to make the change in the world. Or by default, something might have just happened to you that make you realize that you need to help someone to make that change, and so you become a crusader because of what has happened to
I get
you.
it.
And so there is those things that make persons evolve as thought leaders, but the end result is basically the same, because a thought leader makes meaningful change and advocate to change lives and outcomes. And so the thought leader, the person who presents as a thought leader that is about themselves, is on a different mission, and you maybe would not refer to that person as a thought leader because of that agenda, an agenda that serves self. Thought leadership meaningfully and realistically and practically actually accomplish a purpose which involves change, meaningful change, impacting life, inspiring others, and changing outcomes. That's really the fulcrum of thought leadership. And that's why persons who can be seen and with unapologetically identified as thought leaders are seen as doing all of that.
So can I ask a question? Because I hear you, but I'm wondering if you're not sharing it, and I'm not saying you have to wave a flag saying, hey, I'm a thought leader. But if you don't share that with anyone, who are you leading with that thought?
You share it. You share it, but you're not standing on a podium per se and using a microphone to tell people what you're doing. You are actually touching people, making meaningful connections, observing, having your unique perspective, being very innovative and creative when things need to be done to make changes that impact lives and make a change collectively. You are sharing it, but you are not announcing it, and that's a difference.
You're
When you are a
sharing it,
thought
but not
leader,
announcing it.
you
The
share, you
silent
don't
achiever.
announce.
This is the
It's
great
very much
Aussie
so.
icon, the silent achiever.
I would agree to
We
disagree.
yeah.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that you can lead people without sharing it. The method that you share it can
Does
be different, but
does
it's
the word thought leader have to be people?
I would think so. Well,
Do we
according to
have to
all of the
lead people?
definitions I'm seeing, it is people or organization.
Yeah. Do you
So
have
it
to
can be
lead
an
people?
Very much so.
I don't
You have
lead
to
people.
change lives.
I
You
don't.
have to
I'm not a
impact
leader.
lives.
I'm
You have
not a
to change
boss. I've never
outcomes.
been in command. Does that mean I'm not a thought leader? I've never been.
Not
I've
at
never
all.
been
And
the
that's why I
captain of the
say
cricket team. I've never been the boss at work. I've never had any positions of authority. Does that mean that my opinion doesn't matter and I'm not a thought leader?
and that is why I center it, and I'm agreeing with you, Keith, because that those questions are powerful questions, and that is why I center it by saying that it's your voice. It's using your voice or your talent, your gifts to shape conversations. And conversations don't mean that you sit across a coffee table for me. Conversations mean that persons are able to interact with you and you are able to provide solutions based on the needs that come up and drive change and create meaningful impact. It's using your voice, your talents, your gifts to shape conversations. And conversations, let me repeat, I repeat that, does not mean that I sit again across the table. There are persons who are thought leaders that are introverts in organizations. They are not about so much and announcing themselves and walking through, and everybody knows that you are the person and you are this. But persons say, we are so happy that John came into the organization, because it is John why I could get an increase in salary. It is John why we now could get a boardroom to share our thoughts. It's John why we are now feeling included, valued, and appreciated, and so on. And John did not stand and announce that I'm going to be changing that, I'm going to be doing that, and so on. John got about doing what he's doing and made the meaningful conversations, had the impact, shape outcomes, and through collaboration with people. If you're going to serve people as a thought leader, you must know what their needs are. You must know what their needs are. To know what their needs are, you have to actively listen to what is said and what is not said. And you have to differentiate, and you have to take strategic actions to get those outcomes. And so that is why I'm saying, and I'm not changing that, because your influence and your impact as a thought leader is far reaching. It is not just limited to an open door policy or a closed way where I say and I dictate and you follow. That's not thought leadership at all.
But isn't that just the definition of leadership? How is that distinguished from thought leadership? Everything you just described is the traits of a leader, right? So how is
Yes,
that different
I
when
agree with you. What the difference is that the thought leader is focused on using his or her voice to shape conversations that are intrusive and that look out for the well-being and meaningful change. That's the difference. There are many leaders out there. They are very popular, and they can be bought or sold. They are not true to duty. They tend to make popular decisions instead of the right decisions. The thought leader is on the side of making right decisions rather than popular decisions. The thought leader is on the side of making a collective change for the good of all and not just for the good of some, because the thought leader takes all of this into consideration and uses his or her voice to shape those conversations that drive consensus, that drives persons to become masters of their own destiny, and allow persons to think for themselves and appreciate the difference and the creativity and innovation of others, and see how it can be integrated into a final whole to make that change. The average leader does not do that. The thought leader does not focus on the role, focus on the purpose. Many leaders focus on their roles and getting their tasks and responsibilities
This
done
is so
and
fascinating. I mean,
achieving
this
their
is so
goals.
fascinating. This is the completely opposite definition that I would have said myself. Like my interpretation of the word thought leader is that you are a master of what you do and you teach others to do it. I don't lead anyone. I have no desire to change the world. I have no desire to lead a team. I know what I know and I'm happy to share. Now, I may by definition not be a thought leader, but I
Keith,
know what. Yeah? What do you
I-
think?
I'm going to disagree, because you don't know whether you're leading someone or not if you're sharing. I can plant seeds in young minds or anyone's mind, and I may or may not be able to see the outcome of that seed planting. Now, I agree with what's been said relative to being able to move the needle. And then I actually had a sort of a follow-on thought. It seems like we're talking about positive outcomes, but what if this is about a negative outcome? Can we be thought leaders in a negative sense, or to a negative outcome? I think the answer is yes. It's not what I want to be, but I think you can influence people to an end using thought leadership that may be negative.
100%.
But can I answer Chris's original question
Oh,
about what drives people to actually become those thought leaders? Because
yeah, let's have that discussion.
That was Keith's original question. You guys mind if I tag on to what Mike said
yes,
about that earlier? So what drove me to whatever, if you want to call me one or not, is irrelevant to me personally. Um, I'm somebody who just cares about change. I've done what I do. Some people have called me one. Some people have told me I'm not. It doesn't matter to me. Um, what drove me to do what I'm doing is very simple. It just goes back to what Mike said earlier. You either have it in you or you don't. That protector instinct, that um, you see others, you see, for me, like it can be anything. It could be anything as small as an insect. If I see something that looks like it's being taken advantage of or something that's about to be hurt, call it, I worked as a lifeguard. I've done so many different things throughout my life where it's just natural for me to step in and make sure that other people are okay. And I think that's where it comes from for me, is just that instinct to always look out for others before myself. And sometimes to a fault, I will admit that I'll look out for others before myself. But I think that's just what it is. You just have to. It just comes from a place of protection and care.
Is it upbringing? Is it environmental? Is it? I don't. Look. I'm really asking because it's completely absent in my personality. I do not have this gene.
I have a question actually. You're speaking my language, and the way that this conversation has progressed, I just wanted to bring up that servant leaders are different than typical normal leaders. In values, political leadership is about control, power, and influence. And servant leaders don't necessarily desire to be in control, have influence, or have power. The best servant leaders that I've ever met had a sincere and over-pressing desire to help others succeed, help the team. And usually they have an economic demotivator where they're not focused on the ROI for themselves. They're not focused on their bottom
Very
line.
much so.
They're focused on the team and the team winning. So I'm sorry to interrupt. You guys are cooking with gas, but you're starting to get into what I would call servant leadership versus thought leadership, where thought leadership might still be about the team, but servant leaders, they might be reluctant. They might be reluctantly the leader. They're just the best person to help the team because they're the most
See, Mike, I'll change my cord.
Keith, you gotta change your cord, man. You gotta change it.
Scott, I agree, but I still believe, and this is just my personal belief, persons can disagree with me, that thought leaders are mission driven. I just don't believe that thought leaders are about just sharing their opinions and getting noticed and so on. I just believe that they are mission driven and that they have this deep inner conviction or motivation to change things and to challenge ideas that are not working and to share insights that they, based on their experience and what they know, get to know and to make meaningful change. I just believe that they are able to change things for the better because they are mission driven. And similar, and I feel that there is some crossover if we are talking about that makes them become servants because they serve. The purpose that they serve creates transformation, creates a change in outcome. And so I feel that somewhere along the line, they have a thread of servant leadership because they are mission driven. And that's just my opinion of thought leadership, because I don't see it as someone just sharing or voicing their opinion for that sake. I see them as mission driven persons with an intent to change. And that's why I feel that it happens by default for some persons, and some persons are forced into becoming leaders because persons begin to trust them in the informal structure and call for them to solve the problem because they vocalize the ideas, they shape the change, and they make sure that what is being done is realistic and practical and beneficial to those they come in contact with, or just simply because it makes sense to them.
Doc, I'm going to agree with you completely and extend that slightly to say, I think you can be a servant to the mission. And what I mean by that is that while you're pursuing the mission, a win-win for everyone is the best outcome. Typically, it doesn't always happen, but I think the servant leadership and having all boats float and pursue the mission is, and listening to what whoever the audience is that you need to influence, because influence to me starts by listening, and there's a servant leadership part of that is, to me, is part of being the thought leader.
Chris, can I answer the question now about what drives people?
Yeah, of
to
course.
it? Because I'm in Chat GPT while we're talking. So and I'm going to also weave some of my story in there. I am somebody who does want recognition. I am a Leo through and through. And some things that drove me was people stealing my ideas and not giving me credit. So that may be a negative part of it. But what ChatGPT is saying is some of the key things that drive people are, number one, to Dr. Marcia's point, a desire to make an impact, passion for sharing their knowledge, personal or brand credibility, community engagement, and then legacy and recognition. So typically, if you boil down the why behind why anybody is doing something, a lot of people say, oh, I don't need the recognition. I would challenge you to look at their LinkedIn and see what they're posting and ask why they're sharing that with their face or their name if they're not after the recognition. I think it does take a bit of narcissism for people to, and not calling anybody a narcissist, I'm not calling myself a narcissist, but it does take a level of something if you're going to share your content to the world in a very public forum. So what I would say is there's probably a mix of that. When you look at each thought leader that you may come in contact with, they wanted to make an impact. The impact I wanted to make, my community had no access to the technology tools that was opened up to the world. And I saw it as a way for them to be able to grow without having a middleman tell them that they could or could not start a business. My background is instructional design. So I have a passion for teaching. That's the knowledge sharing. And then outside of the corporate space, I was attempting to build a personal brand of I am the person that you come to if you are trying to grow a business. And the legacy is I have two daughters that are looking back at me and they got a chance to watch their mom build something from nothing. And I get recognized in my industry as well as healthcare and human resources because I had the courage to lead with my thoughts and, more importantly, my action, in bringing a community around me that it wasn't just me. These 1,500 businesses are now there because Zakia decided, yes, I'm going to do this thing. And I'll step off my soapbox again.
And I'll speak to that. You see, my opinion on that is that significant leadership significance is what follows thought leaders. Significance, leadership significance. You gain significance. Let me explain what I mean by that. When you are able to use your thoughts to change outcomes and people's lives, you make an impact and persons recognize what you're doing for them and they become your disciples. What I mean is that they share how you have changed your life, how you have impacted them as against your small business. And so you gain significance. Significance by its the very virtue of it carries with it recognition, carries with it respect, carries with it credibility, and carries with it trust. You have established yourself enough that people begin to trust your thoughts and trust that you can make the difference, because through that initiative, you are able to do something for them. And in doing that, you are actually showcasing yourself and what your capabilities and why you're doing what you're doing, because it takes on meaning when you decide that you want to change lives or change outcomes, or you are forced into a position where you have to do it. A perfect example of that is Nelson Mandela. very significant. His name is called Days, years after he has died. And the impact he has made, the legacy he has left is very, very visible to persons, even those who don't know him, because persons tell of how they have experienced it. He has gained the credibility. He has resonated in the hearts of people. He has become extremely significant because significance comes from the impact you make, and recognition comes from those who say how you have impacted them. And so that for me is significance, which carries with it all of what I'm saying: the recognition, the trust, the credibility, and the charisma and the persona that you have managed to build over time because of your consistent thoughts and how they are delivered to make the change in people's lives.
But I just add that it wasn't necessarily for the outcome. I think for you to be a thought leader, you have to be detached from what that outcome is, and you are stepping out on courage in leading with that thought. That's the thing. It's not necessarily for the outcomes. And I think we're agreeing and saying the same things. But I think sometimes, unfortunately, because we're on LinkedIn and there's this perfection thing that is here, there's certain things that you can post on LinkedIn that you can't post on Facebook. That whole thing stops people from showing up truly and authentically sharing whatever those true thoughts that they have that are innovative, that would move people forward.
But the thought leader is not afraid, and that's the point. The thought leader for me is not afraid. The thought leader finds that they end up with a mission, and the mission is what really drives them. And so even if the outcome that you get was not something that you thought through very well, the real reason why you share your thoughts is because they were your unique thoughts, and they were intended based to describe or to share what you now know or have observed or have experienced and how it impacted you. And so even by virtue of that, you now become a thought leader, because persons say, I see what she's saying, that resonates with me. And that is driving them to think about their own experience and to become masters of their own destiny. So whether you start out with an intent based on any outcome, there is always an outcome. And those outcomes have to be recognized and acknowledged, because to every action there is a reaction.
Well, guys, at this point, it's the top of the 7 o'clock hour. And as amazing as this conversation is, I do want to welcome to the room our new guest, Amalia. So we can definitely continue this conversation. But I do want to give Amalia the stage and the moment to introduce herself. Also, I want to figure out who this mystery person Kay is, if you would care to reveal who you are at some point.
I love it. Hi, everyone. Thank you for
Well-
welcoming me on the stage, Chris.
Thank you. Welcome.
Well, everyone, my name is Amalia Gardner. I am a LinkedIn business coach and an audio events expert and trainer. I'm excited. I'm kind of just catching up with the conversation, but so far, just hearing Zakia and Dr. Marcia, it sounds like this is a really good conversation.
It's an excellent conversation. We have varying different degrees of thought leadership from different perspectives, and we are essentially just talking about the importance of it, what makes one, and what it means in the new era. And that's with all the changes from a tech standpoint and a culture standpoint, all the things that are changing around the world. I introduced a concept early on in the show that I think kind of what we're doing right here is kind of an evolving new form of thought leadership, where we're collectively shaping a dialogue together in real time and broadcasting it to multiple social at the same time. So essentially, as we discuss what thought leadership is, we are permeating this out into an ecosystem that's influencing people in real time. So that was kind of an interesting thing that I was bringing up, and then the conversation is just naturally evolving. So welcome to it.
I love it. And for myself, when I think of thought leadership, I think about influencing people, educating, and just shaping their perspectives. I love audio events because you have so many different perspectives from different people, and I can't wait to kind of catch up on everyone's thought leadership. But I feel like this audio events is like the prime, like you mentioned, example of being able to cultivate and share. And it's not just about like having the knowledge, it's about sharing in a way that makes an impact. And that's what I think about when I think of thought leadership.
Oh, amazing. So welcome back. So I just kind of want to recenter the conversation, and I'm going to toss it to Mike, because Mike's had some really interesting input. So Mike, I'm curious, the conversation you just heard between Zakia and Dr. I'm sorry, I'm spacing on your name. I can't read; it's very tiny. But good doctor and Zakia, what was your thoughts on that conversation?
I'm still trying to figure out. I mean, we're batting around this concept of thought leadership and what the outcome is, and so there's part of me that says you can lead from the rear. Now, so are you moving the needle? Yes. Are you necessarily getting prophylicity for that? Maybe not. And to me, to be frank with you, I'm almost prophylicity allergic. I believe that we all want to be seen, heard, and valued, as humans. And I don't consider that narcissistic. I think in order to be valuable members of society, we have to love ourselves. Meaning that we have that, at the root, there has to be this concept of self and of value. And I think we all seek that value in our relationships. I think that's best expressed if we can move the needle in a mission, whatever that mission is.
Chris, there's a question from Curtis in the chat asking
Sure.
about why would thought leadership or even leadership not be tied to an outcome? I think that was something I said. And the only example I have from that is my own personal experience. Some people, myself included, are really focused on experimenting and pushing boundaries without having an outcome or actually being certain. Like it's really a matter of exploration for them in that thought leadership. It just so happens to be before the time that many people are willing to accept it. So there wasn't really a plan for an outcome. There was just a drive of let's just see where this goes.
So I'm one, and I love this because I want to kind of pick your brain a little bit too, Zakia. So I feel like there can also be an outcome when it comes to just testing out things and exploring, because you're testing out something for a reason. And even though you may not have a wide expectation for an outcome, you're kind of doing this because you want to be testing out something in a particular industry. So for example, if you are wanting to explore AI, well, the outcome is to give knowledge and increase people's, knowledge and certain values within that space. So I think it's how you look at it and what you label as an outcome, if that makes sense.
Yep, I agree. Wait, you said you wanted to pick my brain. Yeah. What did I miss? What? But I would agree.
No, I was trying to see if Curse was going to write. I was giving him time.
Oh, okay.
Before I start taking over.
Yeah, and you're right. I don't have an answer for that. It was kind of just a desire to see if I could. That was the whole thing. It was just to see if I could. After I realized that I could, then I realized the lane that I was running in, and it was just an open lane. And then I doubled down into the thought leadership part because someone told me that term. I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely that, and I'll run with it.
I would like to bring up the leadership analyst expert and get his opinion on it. Scott, I'm going to throw you up.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you again so much. There was a very important comment from a sesquipedalian that uses large words that talked about leading from the back. Leading from the back is possible. It is important. But the influence, the persuasion, the ability to communicate a vision, it does have to be given and accepted as a trusted advisor. So I do think that most people do seek authority, and the authority is granted or given permission to share what they think and share how they feel. I do wish that I had met the individuals in this group ahead of time, because we would all be armed with 90 pages of what, why, and how for our own leadership styles, our top skills, and our talents. I've taken 2 pages of notes from you, great folks. So I'm very glad to be here to listen. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's been a pleasure to have somebody who analyzes leadership on stage. And I'm curious to get Keith's perspective on how this conversation has been evolving as well. Keith, are you there still? We may have lost Keith's audio. Keith does have bad internet in Australia. So Kay, are you there by any chance? Who is this K person on stage? I'm going to remove them, I believe.
Just in the interim, I did put assessment links for DISC Plus and the Leadership Attribute Index in the chat boxes. If you guys want to open those windows or if you want to open those in different screens, the DISC Plus would take you about 10 minutes. It's really just about what drives your behavior and what style you have. It will teach you a lot about your particular brand of leadership. The Leadership Attribute Index is about 30 pages. It is scientifically validated in that it will make sure that you say what you mean and you mean what you say. And it does include a validity score or an accuracy percentage for reliability. And it will look at when you're talking about the outside world versus when you're talking about yourself. And I will share that free of charge to any of those that come in. I'll gladly send them to you, because everyone that's invested in this topic, taking this time and in this conversation, you guys are already leaders in my mind just by being here. And it would be fantastic to unlock that part of your understanding and give you the language, maybe even the proof, because knowledge in itself is not power. Right? Knowledge is only powerful when we apply it and do something with it. So I'll give you everything in black and white and all the rest of the colors so that you guys can use it, study it, and it should be fantastic. It will be great to see. Thank you.
Well, it's much appreciated. Thank you very much. I think I kind of want to take a crack actually at addressing the question Curtis asked to Zakia as well, is why thought leadership or even leadership might not be tied to an outcome. I mean, even in a social circle, I mean, thought leadership or influence among your friends or leading a group of whatever, there's not necessarily a desired outcome that's always involved. But there is always somebody who's got the better idea, who's going to shape, like what you're going to be doing for the day, or what restaurant you're going to want to go to and why, or how you're going to plan a vacation with a couple or something. I think thought leadership comes in a variety of different forms. Having been called one and then been criticized for having called myself one and all the gamut that runs along with it, I think it's just a really overcomplicated way of saying that, like, bringing it back to what we said earlier. Like, I think innovation is the key crux of the word. Like, if you're an innovator, and you're a creative thinker and you can think critically about solving problems, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a typical outcome. It's just solving problems with creative thought at the end of the day, and thinking outside the box and just not doing everything in a cookie cutter way. And I think that to me is just the essence of thought leadership in general. And then how you could apply that to your own individual skill, niche, network, or whatever you're doing. It's just being a constant curious innovator. That to me is thought leadership. I mean, I don't know. I'll bounce it off the rest of you guys to get your opinions to keep it going. Who wants to go next?
I'll jump in there, mate. I want to just check my mic first of all. Am I back? Is it
Yes, you
working?
are.
Did we get rid of the hiss?
Yes, so much better.
I just changed my mic. You know, I'm really. I don't know if there's any other Aussies on this call, but I wonder whether it's an Aussie thing or it's a non-American thing. But like, we're just pretty light on down here. Like, we're pretty light on. I honestly do not have a desire to change the world, and I'm really interested in whether that makes me, first of all, a bad person. Second of all, does it make me a servant leader and not a thought leader? Maybe I'm getting those phrases mixed up. And I'm really, really, really excited to understand what is the drive to change the world. Where does that come from? A sense of what's the word? Does it come from a bad childhood? Does it come from a good childhood? Does it come from a sense of a righteousness that, you know, this is wrong and I need to solve it? I gotta know, because I don't have this gene, and I'm really challenged by this. Does it make me a bad person? I mean, am I missing out on something essential to humanity? I gotta know. I don't understand. I gotta be honest. I'm just really puzzled. What do you think?
I'm going to let Scott take this, but I think you're. I don't know if it's that the Americans do more self-examination, or I do. I think we all want to be seen, heard, and valued. Does that mean that we're thought leaders? I would think many of us are probably thought leaders in our sphere of influence, and may or may not realize it. I mean, I can't imagine you have no sphere of influence where you have no mission to move, even if it's family.
Yeah, so I'd love to jump in on this, and Keith and I were talking a little bit in the chat just about, does it make him a bad person? What I would say is behavioral science started in 1908, right? And it all goes back to why do people do things? Okay, why? And I mean, that's more than 100 years ago that they were studying this. And, you know, the whole equivocation of making the world a better place, I would really tie that to the aesthetic drive. The aesthetic drive is all about form. It's about harmony. It's about beauty, and it's about balance. Now, maybe if my lights were on, you might be able to see there's art in my office behind me, because I do have a high aesthetic drive. I do want to make the world a more beautiful place. But for someone that doesn't have the same values, they have a more bottom line approach, a more utilitarian, maybe a practical side of getting things done and having an ROI. There are motivators that can be average, they can be high or very high. And I think what Keith is talking about is a demotivator. A demotivator means I'm not interested in that. I don't want to do that. And there are, you know, so Keith, and anyone listening, please forgive me for saying the term hippie, right? But hippies were all about peace, beauty, and love, and they wanted to make the world a more beautiful place. And then maybe their counterculture contemporaries were straight-laced, wearing suits and ties, and they wanted to make money. They wanted to have control, power, influence. They wanted to have an economic ROI. And what I would say to Keith is, no one is a bad person exactly, unless maybe we talked a little bit about narcissism in here. And narcissism actually does damage the people around you. I've measured it and I've seen it. I can prove it. But to be uniquely and truly yourself means to accept that there's agency, where there's going to be some things where you're in and some things where you're out. And just because you might not like beauty, balance, harmony, maybe even work-life balance, it doesn't make you bad. It makes you yourself. And that's what leadership is about, is being authentic and being yourself. So you're not a bad person if you don't desire those things, because the world's going to take care of itself with or without any of us. Some people, and you wanted to know, where does it come from? Your values were taught to you by your parents. Okay, your parents taught you what was important when they smacked your hand or when they rewarded you when you were young. So you're not really in charge of shaping your values. They were more given to you, and you interpreted how you're going to take that ball and run down the field. But it doesn't make you bad for valuing different things. What I would say is people are as different as their fingerprints. And in my line of work, that's why we measure them, so that we can tailor and tune all the advice, all the answers, all the strategy to build the bridge for them, not drag them across it kicking and screaming. So, Keith, you're not a bad guy. I already know that you're not. So please don't.
I love that we're having this discussion. I mean, as a slight aside, but to demonstrate a point, we all think differently. And I did this as a poll recently, and I said, just to banalify it, if that's the right word, what's the best night to have pizza? Right. And I did this on purpose because I wanted to prove a point. And the most people said, mate, any night at all. I'm happy to have pizza for lunch, dinner, or breakfast. Give me pizza, I'll have it any day. 50% of people said that. But you know that I was surprised by this. 10% of people said, mate, I don't eat pizza. Right? And all of my friends are going, man, imagine a life without pizza. Right? And so the reason I asked the question of where does this drive, because I've got to be honest, it stresses me out, this drive to change the world. Look, just slow down. I've got enough money in the bank. I've got food in my belly. I've mowed the lawn today. I've washed the car. And now I'm watching TV. That's enough for me. I'm happy. I'm content. Happiness is the highest ideal. I don't need to be out there marching. Just not my thing. But and don't hassle me about it. And so I did this really cool poll to say, well, okay, let's take something really simple, pizza. Surely everyone in the world eats pizza. Let's just have a fun and say, what day do you eat pizza? 10% of the world doesn't eat pizza. And I think what you're saying, Scott, is that we're all different. The people that don't eat pizzas are not bad people. They just don't like pizza. And I don't like marching and ranting and carrying on. And I find it stressful. I actually find it quite stressful. I just want to be the best person I can be in my lane. Maybe I'm not a thought leader by definition because I don't have the drive. And maybe you're right, Scott. My parents taught me that. But I've got to be honest, in my mid-50s, I'm pretty happy with who I am. I'm not embarrassed. I'm not depressed that I'm not better. I should be better. And I think you're right, Scott. We are all who we are. And it's changed the energy a bit, but I think I felt compelled to slow it down. I could also do that by just simply leaving. But I thought it was getting a bit a bit ranty, bit rah-rah, as we call it down here, bit rah-rah, I probably was a hippie in a previous life because I'm a Buddhist. I believe in reincarnation. So I was probably a hippie in a previous life, or a hippie type person. Maybe I was Gertrude Stein, or, maybe I was one of those. So it's a very interesting conversation, and thanks for vindicating me for being just an average Joe, just a guy from Melbourne.
But can I add something about what Scott said about that narcissism piece? Because what I said was a small level of narcissism, not a full-blown narcissistic person. And that means you have to have at least a heightened sense of self-belief in what you're able to do when you're presenting that thought leadership. That requires confidence, wanting to be visible, and actually a belief that what you are offering is unique. So all of those, if you do anything too high, would take you to a narcissistic person. But in order to have that courage, to have that conviction for what it is that you're doing, I do believe that you need some sense, a small level of narcissism. And the the key distinction lies in your ability to balance that, right? And not going too far, because then you become self-centered. Then you're the negative aspect of it. So that's all I wanted to add about that note I said about narcissism.
Absolutely, I agree completely. What I would say, I feel I would put that more on extroversion and introversion, where some people don't want to be seen, and some people do like to have the all eyes on them, for sure. Um, and any behavior or value that goes to an extreme is imbalanced, right? When we measure behavior, we like to see things right in the middle, because that means you don't fall one way or the other. You're right there and you can fit in with anyone. I'm afraid that um, narcissism, uh, everyone's bumped into a narcissist, and the self importance, it goes beyond responsibility. It gets more into arrogance and to be untouchable. And you can't talk right and wrong with some people, especially if they don't care. And that's what happens with a narcissist. Same thing happens with a sociopath or a psychopath. They have low empathy and a left leaning negative bias that would make them maybe not the best team player, because they don't care about the team. They don't even care if it all blows up. They just want to be in the limelight. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's such a great conversation. Such a
Mm,
great conversation. Chris, this is your show. I don't want to take over.
I
To
was gonna,
thine own self be true.
I was
To
gonna
thine own
say
self be true.
real quick, Keith. I think I'm more so like you. I was sitting here listening to this conversation. I'm like, if a thought leader is a narcissistic, hardcore, all of these things, then I may not be a thought leader. And it just made me really, I think I'm an accidental thought leader, because I never want like give myself that title. Other people consider me as a thought leader just because I show up. I show up consistently. I love having conversations. It's a passion of mine. I literally became an audio event because I have a disability and I didn't want to be on camera. I learned a new way to show up and really grow my business using this format, and I shared it with the world because I'm like, hey, this is something that works for me. Let me tell you about it. Let me help you help it work for you. And that's what was kind of like my motivator. I never really thought of myself as I am the all-time expert. I am the main go-to person. I love collaboration. I love learning from one another, and I show up. And because I show up nonstop, I've gained authority. And then that authority became to thought leadership. So I feel like it has a lot to do with a person's personality and the person's tribe that is following them, that value what they're bringing to the table.
Yeah, I think this is important because we've been saying, I've been saying that for me, LinkedIn has become Instagram. People walking down the street eating pizza thinking there's some business value in that. Guess what? Just had a pizza. And here's a great looking picture of me in front of the Opera House. Guess what? I live in Sydney and I'm able to go to the Opera House. Clever me. And here's my thoughts on how pizza can relate to making you more money in your bank account next Friday. And there's this big long treatise about that. And I'm thinking, this is what LinkedIn has become for me. These big long posts about nothing with pretty pictures in front of iconic places. Right, now maybe I'm following the wrong people. But the point is that, these people need to show off. They need to show that they're traveling and they're in front of the Opera House or the Taj Mahal or the Eiffel Tower, and it becomes like a travel log. Great. It's great that you're traveling. But what has this got to do with business? Nothing. Why are you doing this? And I guess I'm probably following the wrong people, but this is something that you and I would never do, Amalia, isn't it? We would never do that. I travel, but I don't need to tell you. I don't need to tell you where I've been. I've been to 23 countries, but I don't need to tell you that. I'm not sharing a picture of me in front of the Taj Mahal, although I have been there. You don't need to know that. Doesn't make me a smarter person. I just did it for fun. What do you think, Scott? Am I on the right track there? This idea of narcissism, and why do people share pictures of themselves in front of the Taj Mahal? Do they think it gives them more clients, or are they proud, or are they just sharing?
I am so glad that I'm here, and I'm so glad that I'm talking to you, because I'll just back this up. And you said at the beginning of all of this that you don't have your camera on, you're not going to turn it on. You're not interested in that. I was wanting to ask you about the people that post selfies of themselves, right? Because people that post selfies of themselves, like, it's got nothing to do with business, results they get for clients, or how they impact or save lives. It's how they show up. It's like, hey, look at me. And when I talk to people about this, they usually say, if you're a good looking woman or a good looking man, you should show the face of your brand, and you should use what you have. And I am not that self-important. I don't want to show my face and look at me, I'm doing this. I think that's the antithesis of leadership. If you have to take pictures of yourself doing all of this stuff, that's not really what a leader would do, because it's a picture. It's not an example. It's not a result. It's a demonstration of self-importance. So I'm hesitant about that, because I am not that self-important. Okay. I am not self-centered. My work is about my clients, and it's about finding the best ways, the best practices. And it's all different. What I say is all different depending on who I'm talking to and what their metrics point me to.
I love this discussion, because I just love this discussion because yesterday, as an example, on Blue Sky, this really attractive English girl comes on and says, "Oh, mate, I'm Forex trading. Went to Spain last week. Guess what? I just drove in a Ferrari today, and I can teach you how to buy a Ferrari." And I'm proof of that, because I did it today. Like, I'm living the life. I'm living the dream, and I can teach you how to do it. And you look at a Blue Sky account, and it's pictures of her driving a Ferrari, going to Spain, jumping out of a balloon, right? And I'm thinking, well, look, if you want to do that, good on you. I've got a life too, but I don't have to tell you. And I thought, this is real. It's really fascinating to me that social media has become this for some people. If you're jumping out of a plane because that's what gives you a thrill, I don't need to know that. Good on you for being happy. I like BritBox.com. I'm currently watching Father Brown, but I don't need to tell you that. I'm just doing that in my life because I enjoy it. I don't need to tell you what I'm enjoying. It doesn't make me any more or less successful. It doesn't make me any wiser. And this is exactly what you're talking about, isn't it, Scott? You know what you know. And you don't have to tell people in a fancy mankini jumping out of a plane at 7,000 feet in front of the Taj Mahal, do you? You don't need to. That doesn't make you any wiser. Yeah?
It doesn't drive results. It might drive attention, and some people want attention. And I apologize. I'm a little adverse to talking about the subject of narcissism, because for me, that is maladaptive behavior. So my sincerest apologies about having a negative opinion about narcissism. It's low empathy, it's negative bias, and typically narcissists hurt everyone around them, and sometimes they laugh.
So I agree with you, Scott. And I wanted to raise a point about the difference of being self-assured and self-absorbed. And I see where Zakia made the point, so I don't need to make that point at all. I also wanted to make the point about this thought leader being self-aware and also being convicted, having convictions that drive them. And I saw where Zakia made a point, because I really believe that intentionally or unintentionally, thought leadership reaps results, and the results are you are not necessarily geared towards an outcome. You just want to, you see something that needs to be addressed and you address it. However, I want to throw a question out that I want us to answer. Are we looking at the fact, or is this a school of thought that we could have in our head, that thought leadership is dependent on whose hand it is in? Because there seems to be the balance that you can either become self-absorbed, or you can either be self-assured in that, or you can either be negative or positive, or you can either be motivated or demotivated, or you can just want to ruffle feathers. It's really not, you're not really going anywhere with it. You're just an agitator. What is it really that we want to conclude about thought leadership? I just want to throw that out there,
Can I
and maybe
start?
persons in
I
the
want to
audience would
start.
want to.
I want to start this. I have retired. Let me just put it on the table. I have retired. I worked from 1984 till 2024. 40 years. That's enough. Paid off the house. We don't have kids. There's no debt. I can do whatever I want whenever I want. It's the ideal life. I'm not telling you that. I'm not going to go put that on LinkedIn. I'm just telling you now because we're having this conversation. So I do things each day that I learn and love. And I've got to be honest, I maybe even contradicting myself. It's like a great joke. You can't not tell it. Good example. So I learned things. I've learned how to use Restream. I want to tell you how to do it. I love doing it. If you want to know, I'm happy to share. So for me, I first of all have to know it. And then when I know it, there's a feeling in my belly. I think I'm just contradicting myself now. There's a feeling in my belly that says, you know what, maybe other people don't know how to do this. And maybe I could benefit them by doing that. So I do these shows about Go Brunch and Restream. And Scott's putting his hand up, right? So what I decided in retirement, because I'm doing it for fun, is I do 3 shows a week because I want to. And I learn and I share. And there's no agenda. There is no agenda. Because I could do a show. I could wash the car. I could sleep in. I could go and get a pizza. They're all the same to me. They're all the same. They all have the same intensity. I washed the car yesterday. It was a glorious experience. 8 minutes of my life that I really had a good time because I was at one of those automatic car washes. Cost me $8, took me 8 minutes. The car's nice and clean. Great feeling. No one benefits from that other than me and my wife who loves driving the car. I don't need to tell you that. I don't need to put that on Instagram. So look, I'm not sure I'm a thought leader, but I love life. I love what I'm doing. I'm happy to share the victories I've had. And Scott, if you want to know how to live stream, I'm pretty good at it now. I'm very happy to share. What do you think? Is this a different definition of thought leadership, or is it? I don't have any sort of agenda here. I just love doing it. Do I fit in a different box?
Listening to everyone, I feel like there's a connection, because one thing I love that you said that is similar to me, I need to know it first. I need to feel confident in what I'm about to tell you is something that I know how to do, that I've mastered myself, and I'm not just giving you false information. And I think that ties back into what Zakia was saying too. It's like you have to have that firm belief to take that risk out there. And I think we're just kind of saying things differently, but it's kind of tying itself together as what we believe in leaders for us to show up, right? We have to believe in ourselves. We have to believe in the content we're producing. We have to believe in the topic we're talking about. We have to have some type of sense of expertise and confidence. There we go. Because for me, like you said, I'm not big on the narcissistic word myself, but you gotta have, I guess, However, I'm not familiar with narcissistic traits for me to say yes or no. But you have to have some form of confidence to go out there to really feel like I can push this out there. And Key, for you, we love you. You're the researcher. You're that social audio guy that tests it out and you educate us. You're confident when you show up with Go Brunch. You're confident when you show up with Restream. Your topics is you're teaching things to people that are new to it. So you are that thought leader in that space by just showing up confidently from you testing it. So I think maybe how we're looking at thought leadership, maybe we're overanalyzing a little too much.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm actually going to make a video about how cool it is to wash a red Mazda 3 on a Thursday afternoon. Like, that's what LinkedIn has become. You know, I'm washing my Mazda 3. It cost me $8. I'm having such a great time. I'm such a winner. If you've got a Mazda 3, I'll do a master class on washing Mazda 3s. $97. Click the link. That's exactly what LinkedIn has become. You know, selling bullshit. I'm exaggerating to make a point, but there's so much crap and so much ineffective narcissism or egotism that really I love my Mazda 3 and I love washing it, but how does that help you? It doesn't. It doesn't at all. Right?
You don't know that, Keith.
Oh, okay.
I love that Dr. Marcia said you have to have conviction, clarity, and confidence, and I agree. Hands down, I agree with that. You have to have those things.
And if I could jump in for a second, guys, like one of the things that, I mean, I invited all you guys. So one of the things, I think you're all thought leaders. And one of the things that I kind of want to point out is that too often in the past, there's always people that are putting themselves out front who aren't giving enough credit to the people behind the scenes that are really making everything happen. And honestly, like how could you not consider somebody like Keith and Amalia thought leaders who are just absolute masters at what they do in terms of just bringing these broadcasting platforms out to the world where we can, you know, us who are on missions, who are trying to do stuff like I'm trying to get my NGO. I can't talk about this stuff without these pioneers showing me the way to get to this technology. So without their thought leadership, I can't exercise my thought leadership. So it's really a collective, and I think it's time to recognize all that. It's the collective we that drive everything, and that's kind of something that I really want to spotlight about what I think thought leadership is.
Yeah.
And Chris, I wanted to mention, I think maybe we're getting stuck in what I call profilicity. And profilicity is this idea that, you know, I have to be sort of famous, internet famous or whatever. And I would argue that we can be thought leaders in a group of two. And again, I like one of the things I do is mentorship. I don't necessarily get to see the fruits of that. Am I a thought leader in that? I'm sharing, you know, years of experience with that mentee. So I mean, I agree with what's been said, but I think we might be getting stuck in the weeds a little bit in what the definition of that is. And some could be more, you know, we could, I think, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Jordan Peterson. I think and whether you agree with him or not, but I think he's a thought leader and has had radical changes in thought in our society, particularly for young men. So, but I wouldn't consider myself anywhere near the level of him and his reach.
Yeah, that's important. One of the things I love this conversation because the phrases sometimes get us tripped up, but my mantra, the reason I was born, is that my mantra is you are already awesome. My job is to make you world famous. So I don't actually have anything to say. I haven't got an opinion. That's obviously wrong because I've been talking for 2 hours. But, you know, what I'm pretty good at is tech. And if you need to know tech, I can help you. But I'm not going to do funky videos of me eating pizza to show you that. I do tech in the background. I love it. And maybe people come to me naturally. As Scott said, look, I wouldn't mind learning this. So some people want to do the talking, but don't know how to push the buttons. I want to push the buttons. I'm the guy that wants to do the back end stuff. Right? When I get the mic, you better slow down because I take over. But the point is that I don't often grab the mic in other people's shows. I'm happy to push the buttons. Someone's got to push the buttons. Someone's got to be that back end guy. And that's me. But I'm not going to teach you to do it if I haven't done it myself. I remember once someone said, oh, mate, I'm doing this show about Pinterest and I've got this affiliate link for this Pinterest product. It's only $97, but I get $37 out of that. And I said, have you used it? No, I don't even know what it does. But I get $37 every time someone buys this product. So all I've got to do is convince people to buy this thing that I've never tried, and I get $37 a piece. And I said, that's unethical. No, it's just business. I got to feed my kids. I mean, we are not friends anymore. But Amolia and I are different. We have to learn it. We have to touch it. We have to know it. And then we'll teach it. Is that true, Amolia? You have to know it. You have to know it in your bones before you open your mouth, yeah?
Absolutely. I even stopped everything when LinkedIn got rid of audio rooms. I disappeared for a minute. I was no longer the audio queen. I didn't even feel comfortable coming out of until I knew the new structure of audio to show up again, to have these conversations, to relay my expertise because I actually did the work to learn it. So yeah, I agree. And again, too, like I love this topic because if someone would have came up to me, I don't think I'm a thought leader, because when I think of a thought leader, I think about these TEDx speakers that's on the stage. Even though I got invited to do these things, it's just I feel like it is like a self-proclaimed title that does have a lot of the characteristics that were talked about today that just don't fit with my personality. And that's where you have those people in the back that are not really, I feel like I should say are discredited a lot because we do not have certain characteristic traits to stand out within certain markets.
Do you have that phrase there, the loudest axle gets the grease? You heard that one?
We use the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
The squeaky wheel, yeah. So someone says, mate, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at this. I'm pretty good at this. Look at me, donkey. Look at me. And another person says, look, he's not bad. I'm actually better, but I'm not going to tell you that. It's just not in my personality to go and sprite on about what I do. You'll get to know about what I do lately. When you're ready, you'll find me. I'm that guy. You'll get to it. You'll find me. I'm okay. I'm paying the bills. I don't need fame and fortune. But there's other people that need to shout it from the rooftops, even if they can't do it. Right? A lot of them can, but a lot of them can't. So, Amolia, I'm with you. We are the silent achievers, aren't we? Not so silent today.
And I agree. I agree. Not today, but I love that Dr. Marcia on the line too. And I apologize to anyone I may offend, but this is just me personally. I am a person that really believes in walking in faith and walking in purpose and things that are placed on my heart and my spirit. And I grew up very, I should say, spiritual. And I like to say that I feel like a lot of times I'm being led to the things that I do, and I do it with divine purpose, and it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm achieving. Like I don't want to save the world, but I feel like because I'm showing up and having these conversations with you great people and just having people comment saying that my advice helps someone, it makes me feel like I achieved something. I didn't save the world, but I have made an impact. And I feel like that is what God has given me. And I feel like my why is to live by my experience to help others and impact others, because we all sometimes have similar situations so where we can learn from one another. So that's just my own little 2 cents. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully I didn't lose anyone.
time to move to the after party, Chris. You've got some goss there going on. What are you doing?
Oh, I was just dropping that into the comment section for when we wrap up that we can jump over to go brunch. But yeah, I'm not looking to end just yet. I think this conversation is still going strong, and I'm curious to hear a few more perspectives, or maybe a last minute roundup conversation where we talk about like what are our goals with each individual. What are our goals for our thought leadership going forward?
Yeah, good idea.
And then how we could amplify each other. And then anybody in the audience, anybody who wants any amplification, put your stuff in the chat. We'll talk about it here on stage. And I'll start. I'm building an NGO that seeks to address some serious change around the world. Sales Pulse Medical Trends is not just a newsletter; it's also an organization. And what we want to be able to do is help regionally with the basics that are necessities for life. We believe that it's going to be just power, clean water, shelter, and agriculture. So that's where we're going to start as an NGO, is to address those things regionally around the U.S. and then eventually or go globally with it as well. And then we're going to get into trying to fix the healthcare system down the line. But that's what I'm working on. That's my big project, but I'll let everybody go, promote their ideas, and then what we can do to help amplify help amplify each other's passion going forward. So Amelia, you're up on screen, so feel free to start, and then we'll go in order.
I'm sorry, I was over here trying not to cough up a lung. Can I go later?
Yeah, sure. Mike, I'll let Mike go. Mike, you go first.
I want to leave the world a better place than I found it. Personally, the middle of last year, I had a quadruple bypass. And it kind of woke me up to the fragility of life. So I want to take, I don't want to take the time I have and the relationships I have for granted. Professionally, I want to do the same thing. I've been doing a lot of mentoring. I want to continue to do that. You guys have really encouraged me to maybe branch out and do more. I've written multiple articles and so forth, but you guys really encouraged me to pursue, broadening my reach. So I definitely want to touch base with you to see if, the least friction ways to do that.
Yeah, definitely. That was, that actually touched me in a personal way because, I don't talk about it often, but what started me on my journey, I almost passed away about 2 years ago, and that's actually changed my entire outlook on life. So yeah, we should connect offline and let's continue to inspire one another. And life is precious. It really is. And it's fleeting and it's short, and it really is. Sometimes it takes an event like that to wake you up to what really matters. So I hear exactly where you're coming from.
I'll pass on a paper I've written. I call it Omni Logos, but it's this concept. I found out later that there's a lot of other thought that are parallel to it, but it's basically the thought that we're a lot more connected than we think.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
I might jump in there and take an opportunity to talk about why Restream, what we're using today. There's others. I'll talk about those later, but Restream does exactly what we've talked about today. Restream is a site that allows you to do this. Now, as you're learning it, you just do one. I'm sending this to LinkedIn. But you can send it to up to 3. Now, isn't that cool? You could send it to your YouTube channel if you've got one. You could send it to your Facebook group. You could send it to a Twitch account. You could send it to X. You could send it to Instagram. So what we're doing there is we're multiplying the reach. We're doing the show anyway, and it looks great, and we're all chatting, and we send it to LinkedIn. But with a click of a button, we can also send it to YouTube. And that's all it is, just a click of a button. And the thing that I love about Restream, and I do shows about this, is that if you come on my show, you can also send it to your YouTube channel, to your LinkedIn account, to your Facebook group. And the way Restream works is we can actually send it to up to 30 places at the same time with the click of a button. Now, how's that for reach? We're doing the show anyway. Why not just click a button and send it to another site? They may benefit from that. As you said, Chris, I think it was you, Mike, who said someone might benefit from me doing a video about washing my car. I'm not going to test that theory, but so Restream and these others that I talk about, I'm all into multiplying the benefit. We're doing the show anyway. Here we are. We're here. Let's click a button and send it to our YouTube channel. You might have quite a functional YouTube channel, or you might like Facebook or whatever. It's a very good idea, Chris, isn't it? This is why we love it so much, isn't it?
Yeah, 1,000%. Because in case you guys aren't aware, this is being restreamed from here, from me to my YouTube channel, which is already. This will be live on my website as soon as I hit end stream. This whole conversation will be live on my website. So if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you want to watch a restream, it'll be here on LinkedIn. You can go to my website, and that'll bring you to my YouTube page as well. Or you go to YouTube and find me. And so this will be permanently up on my website now, a conversation that will continue to be documented. This is how I'm adding a video blog element to my social media. So again, I guess we'll pass it on to Dr. Marcia for her thoughts.
Are we summing up the thoughts, or am I to just talk about life generally as a life and leadership coach?
Just kind of whatever you want to do to finish out the show for your last, whatever you want to give to the show. I spoke about my NGO and my desire to grow it. If there's something you're in particular want to work on, this is your chance to shine, bring attention to yourself.
Yeah, I just want to change the trajectory of female leaders, female executives who are struggling with balancing their life, their career, and their faith, because life happens. I'm very passionate about this. I lost 4 members of my family in 1 month, including my mother. And in August of this year, I lost 2 family members. He got married, and 2 weeks after, he collapsed in a store, and the other drowned unexpectedly. And I see how the parents who are executives and members of my family, and how they struggle to align this and to deal with this while leading and understanding themselves and settling into their purpose. And so I find that many times when we are misaligned, we don't do very well, but there is not the space for persons to share or to have the support group to manage their life and leadership as female leaders, because by virtue of the fact that they are females, there is some discrepancy in the workplace, and they have to work so much harder. There's gender bias. There's those things are real, as much as they may have gone down just a bit. And there are persons whose priorities have changed based on these trauma and these life-changing events, and they are disconnected, but they feel that they have to go on just to pay the bills and so on, because life is real. So I really offer that type of support to female leaders who want to be able to balance it practically and realistically, and get joy out of what they're doing. I like this conversation particularly tonight because it opened the minds of many persons. It integrated thought and difference, and it also was a learning curve for many persons. I thank you for Chris for your invitation, and I want to say I was enriched by all the contributions of every single person. Sometimes if we look into the heart of people, we would maybe take a different view on how we approach things, how we deal with them, how we really support and accept them for what they're going through and who they are. And I think we did a great job tonight in that way also. I want to thank all of you very much for the way you have impacted my thoughts tonight and how they have been expanded and those that have been clarified.
I think that was a beautiful share. Thank you very, very much. Um, so I guess that leaves both Amalia and Zakia. Who would like to go first out of the two of you?
I can go.
All right, Amalia first.
All right. Well, I agree with Dr. Marcia. Tonight was amazing, and I loved hearing everyone's point of view on thought leadership. And I can definitely say I love having conversations with all of you, but I love Zakia and Dr. Marcia. I feel like when it comes to a lot of the things we discuss, personality comes into play with it. And I feel like hearing other people's perspectives makes me see things in a different light to where my personal thought process, characteristic traits, or just my personality may need to hear these things to kind of shift to be able to, navigate in certain spaces and how to do certain things. Because I know for a fact I have to be careful because I am a person that will probably become obsolete if I don't really listen to the people that have done this before, that know and experience, like, hey, this is how you can survive if this is what you want to do to turn into a business, right? Because we have what we love to do. Keith is like me. We want to put all the information out there to the world, and you want to be thought leaders. But when it comes back to, if we want to be thought leaders to have a business, we have to have certain characteristic traits, mindsets, and thought process to be successful. So it was just really good hearing everyone's perspective. But for me, my goal this year is community. And a lot of you here are also part of the Audio Leadership Club. So if you are interested in expanding your reach with audio events or just events and collaborating with other leaders here, because Chris, Keith, Dr. Marcia, and Zakia are all members of the Audio Leadership Club. And we like to support and show up for one another. So if you're interested in a community that thrives in event spaces and will love to join you on stage, definitely fill out the waiting list form. We love to have you a part of our community.
Thank you, Amalia. That's amazing. It is an amazing community, guys. I'm not trying to oversell it, but it is really awesome. It's a phenomenal app. It's so intuitive. I'm able to join shows right from it. Pops right into my calendar. And honestly, I've met so many amazing people through it. I would highly recommend it. And with that, I'm going to toss it over to Zakia for her moment.
Well, hello. I'm going to echo Dr. Marcia and Amalia. I will be very honest. This was a very frustrating call for me tonight, but it also allowed me to kind of expand the way I see things. Unlike Keith, I do sell my services, whether that be training for any live streaming tools, setting up an online store, all of those things, because I have spent years and dollars learning those things. And so, to answer your question, Chris, the thing, just what I'm working on is Business Tech Lab. And that is so people do not have to jump through the hoops and try and figure out how to bring their business online, how to sell physical products, how to sell digital products, how to start podcasts, how to live stream, and how to sidestep Some of the things where you want to do it from the heart and you want to do all of those things, but if this is the career that you have chosen in terms of content creation, there is a business model associated with it. And that's what Business Tech Lab is all about, in making sure that that technology is very, very clear for small business owners to thrive in an online marketplace, because we are in a creator economy.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. I like it. I mean, we're gonna have to talk offline. All right, and with that, I think Scott, I think you are the most appropriate person as the leadership observer to wrap this up for us, to give us the breakdown of what you observed tonight. I'm enjoying your breakdown, so I'm gonna put you on camera and throw you to the fire, my friend.
Hey, thank you. I'm willing to take it. I've learned a lot from you guys, just reading the chats, hearing what you had to say, learning from your perspective, and hearing the takes. It is powerful. Everyone that came to this room was invited. Okay, and some people might not feel like it was a good time or that it was time well spent, but if you were here, it wasn't an accident. All right, the universe doesn't make a lot of mistakes. You were invited here. You learned. You learned different takes, and for me, I have the impression that I'm a scientist, I'm a student, and so all of you have made me better tonight, and I'm grateful for that. The very different takes, the shared understanding and unified vision that you guys have for where we're going as leaders, how to communicate and share our vision to persuade, move people, and bring them along on the path. It's very important because, I mean, like I said, I'm on my fourth page of notes here, typing, in the background, and I apologize if my typing was picked up by my microphone. But everyone here taught me something very great tonight, and I look forward to connecting with you on LinkedIn if we're not already connected. I'm looking forward to sharing the scientific results of your leadership, the breakdown, behavior, style, talents, genius. I study because all of you have so much to teach, and we as a people, we have so much to learn. So I'm excited for the restream because I will replay it and I will connect my notes. And they were sometimes fragmented because you guys said so much of value that I couldn't always take notes as to who said what. I was just typing what I heard. So I look forward to the restream and the sacrifice to be here, give up dinner time. The answer to Keith's question, the only wrong day for pizza is Tuesday, because that's for taco. But everyone here, you do bring very great value. I do look forward to being connected, with you, working with you, learning more from you, and sharing your experience, your wisdom, your thought leadership with my network. I only have about 12,500 followers or connections on LinkedIn. It's not about size as much as it's about strength of the network. And so for every single one of you, I genuinely thank you for what you bring daily and what you brought here tonight. I'm sorry I had a technical glitch. It kicked me off for a minute. I thought maybe Chris had an issue with his signal because it just dropped me out. So I do apologize, but for everyone that shared with me tonight, you're in my debt. And thank you so kindly.
Yeah, so with that, guys, what an honor it's been to have you all on stage. So first and foremost, thank you to Mike, Scott, Keith, Dr. Marcia, Amalia, Kay, I believe that's Kelly. You could say hi. I didn't even realize you finally made it to the stage, but welcome to the stage, Kelly. and Zakia. So guys, thank you so much for joining us on stage, and thank you so much to everyone in the audience. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. I am a people studier, so for me, this was so fascinating in so many different ways. I'm actually going to be watching the restream on this as well, just because I was incredibly curious. There were some amazing moments, and Mike, I definitely want to connect with you a little bit more after this. And Scott, I see it here in the comments. Everybody wants to see your notes. So if you can distribute that to everybody, that would be awesome. That would be phenomenal, man. We would really, really appreciate that. So however this came together, like you said, the universe makes no mistakes. I'm a firm believer in that as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where this is going. But with that, if anybody else doesn't have any final words, this is your final shot. Say anything if you got anything. Otherwise, thank you for being here.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks for a great topic, Chris. Really awesome.
Thank you. All right. Guys, there's a Go Brunch link that I'm going to drop into the chat. If anybody wants to go to an after party, I'll pop in there in about 5 minutes. Otherwise, I'll meet you in my room. Otherwise, have a great